Hi, I'm Kat Alvarado, and you are watching/listening to the Creatively Ever After podcast. What is my podcast name? This is a podcast for people who are creative and have jobs or don't have jobs and are creative. I don't know, but if you like making things that are art, this is the podcast you should listen to. I'm here with a guest I'm really excited to have on because he's my co-host on the Unofficial Official Story Podcast. He's also a writer and a producer who has actually done the thing. He's written movies and had them made in real life.
12 of them, actually.
12 of them! This is Koji Sakai.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for coming. Good to see you too. I'm going to see you on Thursday when we record the next episode. What's the next episode on?
It is on. Did Stephen King kill John Lennon?
Oh.
Because he did, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe. Is he
yeah.
a time traveler? I don't know. 11/23/62. Isn't that?
That was his.
That was his JFK.
Going back in time. Yeah.
Going back in time movie. Anyways, fun stuff. Our Unofficial Official Story Podcast is about conspiracy theories and true crime, and we discuss what maybe really happened and come up with our theories.
Yeah, with our co-host Dwayne Perkins.
It's really fun.
Yes.
I'm excited to be a part of it. But we're not here to talk about conspiracy theories. We're here to talk about you and your creative journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's rare to, just being a person out in the world. I think we rarely encounter people who actually did the thing and became screenwriters and had movies made. Like, you run into people who have their own scripts and want you to read their scripts.
Everybody in LA, you mean?
Yeah. You could throw a rock and hit somebody with a script.
Actually, the joke is that it's not even LA. It's like anybody who speaks English in the world is dreamed of writing scripts for Hollywood.
Wow.
So that's why I tell my son it's actually harder to be a screenwriter than to be a professional baseball player, because if you've ever written a word in English, then you've imagined yourself as a screenwriter at one point.
That is overwhelming. But we spoke earlier, and you didn't always want to be a screenwriter. When you were young, you wanted to be a baseball player.
Yeah. But I just sucked. So it didn't really work out, unfortunately. So
I wanted to be a runner, specifically a sprinter, when I joined the track team. And I was slow.
That's funny.
And they were like, we are going to put you on the long distance team. You're bad at sprinting. And it was so sad. The hurdles seemed so cool. So you wanted to be a baseball player. And when did you turn and go, wait a second, I want to write?
Well, the beginning of my writing, I always say, is when I was a water polo player. I played baseball and water polo. And I remember every trip home from a water polo game, I would make up stories about my family, just kind of wacky, weird stories about how my family were Nazi hunters or they fought in the Civil War. And I just make up stories the whole time. And one day my coach was like, you make up so many stories. You should just become a writer. And that was the first time I was like, I love storytelling. I love writing. And then around that time, my dad he got really sick. He actually went blind. He had a stroke and a heart attack. And I wanted to express my feelings. So I started writing poetry about my dad. And that was the kind of the beginning of me wanting to be a writer, but not a screenwriter, but just a writer in general.
Art is therapy. So that's actually a really healthy way for you to channel a lot of those heavy emotions from that time period. Do you have any of those poems? Did you bring one?
I did bring it, but it's so bad I can't read it.
Okay, it's okay. I will make you.
Maybe later. We'll read it later.
Oh, gosh. Did you share your poems with anyone, like your mom or like your girlfriend?
I did. I did a graduation poem. I did my friends, they had to listen to my bad poetry and, all those kinds. I was a very terrible writer guy who just read people my stuff, even if they didn't want to hear it.
Did you read your girlfriend's poetry?
Yes, I did.
I once dated a guy who was a writer, and he would call me and he would read the stuff on the phone.
I never did that, but I read it in person, so it's probably just as bad. It might be worse. I don't know.
Did you slams? Did you snap?
No,
did they do
I
that?
wasn't good enough for that kind of stuff. But I loved the idea of writing, and at the time I wanted to be a prose writer because I love reading, so I wanted to be like a literary writer.
Like a novelist?
Yeah, like a novelist. Yeah, write the great American novel kind of thing.
Like the next John Steinbeck.
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury.
John Steinbeck's one of my favorite writers of all time. That's great.
I remember English class. I did that once.
But yeah, that was the kind of writing I wanted to do. But I think reality kind of set in terms of like, everyone telling me you can't make money. It's not a real career, all of that good stuff. So writing was more of a hobby, more something I wanted to do on the side, something I did when I had nothing else to do.
That's so relatable, especially if like immigrant parents. My mom came here from Nicaragua. Your family's Japanese. Like they tend to be like, you can't make money at art. Go do something else.
Yeah, and my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, so I took the the LSAT, STAT. I did I went to all the colleges or the law schools to like go take a tour in, and one of my classes at UC Santa Barbara, you had to actually interview people in the field that you wanted to go into. It was like a career class.
And you had studied poli-sci.
Yeah, I studied political science. And so then I interviewed these 6 lawyers, and they all told me, don't become a lawyer. They said it was terrible.
What specifically did they say it was so bad?
They said that like when they started, they hated it, but at least they made a ton of money. And then they said, well, you'll hate it and you won't make nearly as much money as we are making now. That like it's like they're making less and less.
Oh, the industry is changing.
Yeah, and the industry was changing like 20 years ago, so this is a while ago. But like even like so like they're like, well, if I'm not making as much money, I would recommend people not to do this. And I was like, I don't really want to do this anyway. So then I got after I graduated, I got a corporate job. I was a buyer for a department store, which is totally random. And then I just realized I hated writing. I love writing. I hated corporate jobs. I hated working a cubicle. It just felt like, it felt like death. And then, speaking of immigrant parents, I quit my job. I said I wanted to be a writer. I finally made the commitment. I'm going to be a writer. But my mom was like, you have to make money. You have to do something. So as a good Asian, I went to graduate school. I went to USC in the writing program. And then that's what kind of started me kind of on my professional journey.
USC has a reputation for having an amazing alumni association. Do you feel like your alumni connections from USC did anything?
No. No. I mean, I should say yes so that you go to the school. But, no, I'm sorry. It didn't really do anything for me. I mean, I think a couple times I might have gotten like a conversation in a meeting about being from USC, but never like, no one's like, I want to hire you because you're from USC.
Yeah, I feel like the networking thing is kind of a myth. Like you can meet people and like you might be at like a cocktail reception and be like, oh, it's George Lucas, but it's not like you're going to talk to him or like he's going to give a crap about you.
No, yeah. That's been my impression. But when I was at USC, I was writing prose like we were talking about. And then I was just terrible at prose writer. I wish I was a better prose writer, but I just wasn't good. And I was like, this sucks. I'm not making money. I can't get an agent. I can't get a manager.
What was so bad about your prose?
The thing about the way I was telling stories was I'm very sparse writer. Like I don't write a lot. So I was like, I'm going to write a book without a world.
Oh, no.
So like I was doing things like that. And then I was like, and so obviously it just didn't work. And then I was going to quit. And my girlfriend at the time was like, you can't quit. You've spent so much money at USC. Why don't you take screenwriting?
Wait, hold on. So you were like, I just wish I could write, but without any description and just dialogue?
No, not even just dialogue. Just like what if we write a book without like a location and we just never talked about the location? Like that kind of thing. I thought I was being creative.
I just feel like that's like the predecessor to, you were already like thinking screenwriter.
So, but that's the thing. So when I took that screenwriting class, I was writing like a screenplay the whole time. I just didn't know it.
Boom.
Right. Like I was like, because in screenwriting, you're not anything that's not important to the story, you don't write.
Yeah, you kind of describe a little bit of the scene or scenario. We're outside. It's a cloudy day.
Yeah, other than that, you don't describe it unless it's important to the story or characters. And I was like, oh, literally, this is what I was meant to do, but I didn't know it till I took the class. And I took it with the guy that wrote the first book about screenwriting called Screenplay by Sid Fields. And I took a bunch of classes with him and it just clicked. And all of a sudden I became a writer.
That's like learning how to build phones with Alexander Graham Bell. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, he was the first, not the first writer, but he was the first guy that taught writing. Right. Or screenwriting. I taught screenwriting, not writing.
Yeah. Huh. That's what an opportunity. And that was through USC.
That was through USC, yeah. And the way he told stories, the way he taught storytelling just made sense to me from the very beginning.
Is there anything that you learned from Sid Field that we can't learn from reading his book?
No, the book that he wrote is exactly like the class, so you could totally get it. And if you take one of my classes, I could teach you anyway. So
yeah, because you teach at UCLA.
I teach at UCLA Extension, and I teach at other places as well.
Nice. Yeah, I still feel so lucky to have you here, even though you're also my friend and co-host. But So cool. So you go to USC and you discover screenwriting, and then you leave USC.
And well, before I left,
Okay.
actually, so I wrote it, like Sid taught me
Mm-hmm.
or taught the class, and I was like, this makes sense. I quickly like sat down and wrote a screenplay in a week during over spring break.
Yeah.
And then I knew some people in the film industry, and I like sent them the script, and I said, "Can you read the script? Do you know anybody who would buy it?" And the guy happened to know somebody would buy it, and the guy optioned the script for me, and I made a bunch of money. And all I could think was, "Oh my God, that was so easy." That was like the easiest thing I've ever done in my life in terms of writing. And I got the first time I ever got paid as a writer, so I was super happy. And then I was like, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." And I didn't know at the time that it'd be years and years before I made anything or I got any kind of success. But it was great. It was a great first opportunity for me.
They say similar stuff like that happens in comedy. Like if you do your first comedy show and you make people laugh, it's almost guaranteed that like the next bunch you do, you're going to bomb. So tons of people start out hard with comedy. They're like, I'm so good at this. And then they start bombing and then they quit forever.
Yeah.
But if you bomb the first time, then you're more likely to keep it up because you're like, oh, I have to work hard. It's normal to bomb.
I mean, I think it's all a hustle anyway. So, what I tell students all the time is that you can't write because you're trying to make money or you're trying to sell it. Because if that's what you're doing, it's not going to work, especially your first script. So you just got to chill out, learn how to write. It's an art. And Sid Fields believed you needed to write 5 scripts in order to learn how to actually write scripts.
I believe that.
So, and I think it's actually true too. You need to write a bunch of scripts in order to become a screenwriter. But the problem is most people think, I write one, it didn't sell. Oh my God, my life is over. I'm not going to be a writer anymore. And they quit.
One thing I've heard from various writing classes I've taken is like, some people put like 5 years into one script. And then when that doesn't sell, they're devastated. But what I've been told is really you should be productive enough in your writing that you have a few scripts and that you're not taking 5 years to write one, but you can crank out 1, maybe 2 a year or something. And then
more than that.
Yeah.
I work on 8 projects at a time.
Good God.
Yeah. So I have a couple projects that I'm doing researching. I have a couple projects that I'm outlining and do beat sheets for. I usually have 1 or 2 that I'm writing, and then I have 1 or 2 that I'm editing. So, I mean, this is what I tell my students all the time. When they're writing scripts, they wrote that one for 5 years. I've written 40 scripts.
In that time.
Time period. And so what happens, who's going to sell, who's more likely to sell me? I've written 40 scripts, you've written 1, right? I mean, just by sheer numbers, I'm probably more likely to get that project made.
Productivity is key. Yeah. So that's like 5 times more of what I just said. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is like, thinking about it in terms of joke writing too. For some people, it takes them a long time to craft one joke. But a late night writer who does this professionally, they'll write like dozens and dozens of monologue jokes in a day, and they're just pitching jokes on jokes on jokes until whoever the host, Jimmy Fallon or David Letterman's like, oh, I like these 6. Yeah,
because it's a muscle. That's what I think people think that they think creativity is something that comes from the sky and it's magic. But it's a job. It's a skill. This is why I always tell writers not to write their first screenplay of a script that they've been dreaming about for 20 years because it's not going to work. It'd be like, if you've never picked up a tool before and all of a sudden you want to build a house, it's probably not going to work. And it's the same thing for screenwriting. You have to kind of start small. You start like, my first project you write should be something that's easy. Like genre is easy, the formatting, everything's going to be pretty easy. You know what it's going. And then it gets more difficult until you're a real writer. You go from baby writer to real writer.
If you're a baby writer, should you write all your trunk scripts, as I've heard them called? Yeah. Those are when you're first starting to write and you write like those first 5 bad ones. Those are your trunk scripts. Do you suggest people stay within the same genre and format, or like try horror, try
I always, so the first script I think should be easy.
Easy.
The second script should be in a genre that you're not interested in. It forces you to learn that genre. It forces you to watch movies in that genre. Third movie should be a genre that you're familiar with, that you really like. Fourth movie is then this the first time that you're writing something that you really want to write, I think. And then the fifth script I think is when you're starting to write like things that that's the first script that I think you should go sell.
Okay. So if I've written 2 sitcom pilots and
TV writing
2
is
features,
different though too, right?
Where does that put me am I at 2 features or am I at 4 scripts?
4 scripts, I think.
Okay.
Because it's storytelling. It's about storytelling. How do you tell a story?
Yeah, because I think the difference between TV writing, like writing a pilot versus writing a movie, is one has the story completed and the other one is like, let's set up a springboard that can potentially make 100 episodes of something.
Yeah. Well, the biggest difference in TV and film is that in TV is about characters and film is about plot.
Yeah.
So when you're writing a TV show, it's more about the journey of the character and how they react to the world and the plot, whereas movies really just about plot with the characters in the plot.
Yeah. I've noticed that when I write a pilot, it is kind of like stacking up dominoes, and you're like, how can I set up these dominoes so that they can do as much nonsense as possible for as long as possible?
What does the character need? What do they want? What do they think they need? And how are they going to get there? And what happens when they get there?
And keep them flawed and learning.
Yeah, and then they never completely change, but as the audience watches them, they change a little bit and grow as the audience grows. But film is completely different because film's about the plot. Like, how does what's happening in the story, where they're going, and ultimately there's a beginning, middle, and end.
I mean, in screenwriting classes I've taken, we do talk about, like, the character does change. They do have a
but
growth.
The story isn't about the change as much as
it's more
the
subtle.
plot changes the character. The character changes because of the plot, not the other way. Whereas it's dominant in the TV, it's about the character.
Oh, it's subtle then.
Yeah. But when you pitch, like when people always ask me, is it TV, is it a movie? Usually it's based on how they pitch it to me. So if they're talking to me about the character, it's usually a TV show. If they're talking to me about plot, it's usually a movie.
Interesting.
So if they start with like, there's this really interesting mechanic, then it's a TV show. If they're starting to tell me about the zombies and the zombie virus and
okay, I'm not going to tell you what movie this is or TV show this is. Oh, shoot, I gave it away.
It's a movie. Yes.
Okay. I think of something else completely. This is definitely not the thing I was just going to say. Okay, new one. Okay, you guess if it's movie or TV show. 2 Mormon missionaries go to this guy's house to convert him to Mormonism, and he traps them there.
That sounds like a movie.
It's Heretic. Really good one. What about that made it sound like a movie?
Because it's about plot. You're telling me more about plot.
Okay.
Like it's the chopping part.
Okay.
If you started like there are these 2 Mormon missionaries who are searching for themselves, then it's a TV, right?
Huh. So, okay. A family moves into a house and they find creepy toys and their kids start hearing sounds around the house.
It's more like a movie.
That's a movie. Okay,
like
it's The Conjuring.
Yeah. Okay. Whew, I'm glad I worked out.
I'm on a horror movie, scary movie kick, thriller kick. I don't know.
Same thing.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. You get out of school. You sell your first script. You option your first script, which is different for the people who are not familiar with screenwriting. What does optioning versus selling?
So optioning is like escrowing. Like they give you, like you receive money, and then there's a limited amount of time, like 6 months to 3 years, where they're able to raise money or shoot the movie. Mm-hmm. And then once they go into production, then they have to purchase a script from you. So that's when they actually buy it from you. But optioning is kind of just like escrow on your script.
Okay, they're like, we don't want you to sell this to anybody
and we
else.
want to do something with it. Yeah, we're trying to do something with it. And here's some money to hold you for whatever amount of time it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So then there was a period of time where you didn't sell or option anything.
Yeah,
you were just
those
working.
were tough years for me.
So how did you get through it?
I just wrote. I wrote every day. I wrote all the time. And I needed to learn writing. Actually, one of the best pieces of advice I got, I was working for a production company. He was the showrunner of The Cosby Show. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, my writing wasn't working. It just wasn't going. And he gave me the best advice, which was that at the time I was writing poetry. I was still doing everything. I was writing poetry. I was writing nonfiction. I was writing fiction. I was writing screenplays. I was writing TV shows at the time, which were completely different than film at the time. And I was writing everything. And he's like, Koji, there's a writer in the basement who's not as good of a writer as you, but is only writing features. And all he does is write features every day, 24 hours a day. And you're messing around with all these other things. And so he might not be as good of a writer, but he's going to become a better screenwriter than you. And so from that point on, I was like, all right, I need to focus on screenwriting. So ultimately I stopped working there. I started working on sets for the singular purpose of learning how to make movies so I could write it better. And then I interned at a agency, and then I started writing, and I just started writing until I got screenwriting only, features only for a long, long time in order to learn how to write. And then, eventually I would enter contests and fellowships, and I started winning, and I started getting some things, but still nothing really happened. So what really started it, which is kind of sad. I mean, I always wish it was a better story, but not sad, but it's just sad in that the amount of work I put in, and to have this be the reason my first movie got made is just, it makes me like wish I had a better story. So it was, my mom was a beautician and she cut hair for this famous Japanese director, and they were having a conversation, and my mom pitched me as a writer because he needed a rewrite of an English project. And he I guess he liked whatever my mom was saying, and he hired me, and then I wrote it, and eventually became a movie that came out on Lionsgate. And that was my first movie. And after that, everything kind of snowballed after that.
Yeah, work begets work, as they say.
Yeah. I mean, it was the thing that got me started.
That's so ironic, because your mom was also the one who was like, I don't want you to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a conversation with my mother that, when we were first talking about screenwriting, she we literally looked around and said, well, what other Asian screenwriters are there? And we couldn't really find them. And she's like, well, if no one else is doing it, it means that you probably can't do it. So you should do something more stable, I guess is the word, probably.
Which goes to show you the power of representation in media.
Yes, I mean it was very sad. I mean, even in my program at USC, there were very few Asian Americans with me.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's like cultural? I mean, I know the answer to this question. It's true generally for people of any culture that is not white.
Yeah.
For your parents to be like,
no, but
hey,
for Asian Americans, it's about going to law school or going to medical school or having a stable career. Those are all things that are really important to the Asian American community. So by not doing that, it bucked that. But my mom, to my mom's credit, what she always told me was that I live my life, she lives her life. Whatever choices I make are me. And that, she's not going to stop me from doing anything. And, like if I mess up, that's on me. Or if I do a great job, that's on me too. So, to her credit, she never said I couldn't do it. And, she supported me, not financially, but she supported me by allowing me to live at her home when I went to college or went back to school. So she was there to help me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that is something I'm episode after episode, I'm seeing that one key component is having supportive family members.
Yeah. Or at least somebody not saying you shouldn't. I mean, not telling me overtly that I shouldn't do it. I mean, she didn't want me to be a screenwriter. That's for sure.
She wanted you to be safe. She wanted you to be secure.
Yes.
Like it came from a place of love, not a place of
this
discouragement.
This is one of my best pieces of advice always is that if you're creative, you should marry somebody who's not creative. Because one of the, I'm married right now, and my wife, Marcia, has a real job. And so she's, I have to thank her because I couldn't have had my career without her because she's adds stability to my life. Like her, she makes good money. Her money is the thing that, pays our mortgage, pays our bills, because it's steady. We know how much she's going to get. I don't know. I could make nothing or I could make a lot. I don't know. And so, having somebody who's not in the industry, not in the same boat as me, really, really helps out with, life, I think.
Smoothing things along.
Yeah. And it allows me to, we're going to talk about this, I think, but it allowed me to take jobs that, weren't great jobs just so I could make a living and write. Because it's hard to be something that's professional that I have to work 50 hours, 60 hours a week and be a writer.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. So you were working a lot in production, 12-hour days. It was not conducive to writing, so you worked at the...
So I decided once I got all the experiences in the industry, I was like, I know it now. I don't need to be an intern. I don't want to work for an agency. I don't want to work for a manager. I don't want to work for a production company. I don't want to shoot movies anymore. I'm done. And so then I just decided, I need a job outside the industry and something that's not going to tax my brain, is not going to force me to write, and it's completely separate. So then I got a job at the Japanese American National Museum in Little Tokyo here in Los Angeles. And it was a beautiful building. It's a beautiful building. And it was the first, what's great about the job was the first time the mission aligned to something that I actually believed. And so, that job was something that didn't tax my brain. I didn't write, and it allowed me to be a writer and work there and make some money and do something I wanted to do too.
There's something really valid in that, because one of my first jobs out of college I was a market research analyst, but really I was doing a lot of the bulk of my work, data entry of finding information on companies, putting it into this database and just making sure it was accurate and right. And that took some knowledge, but it was very boring. But that's the time where I wrote most of my comedy from the beginning, where I was really learning how to do stand-up, I was able to do it because I didn't have a taxing job. I wrote like 3 or 4 scripts just in those couple of years.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to get that same like juice that I had back then. I definitely had like a lull afterwards because I got more senior jobs. And so my brain was tired.
And I think a lot of writers, one of the places they go wrong is they get a job that they're writing. And it's hard to be a writer in your life and then be a writer on the side because it feels like work is continuing. So I intentionally got a job where I didn't have to write that much. And so that my writing was pure. It was me. It was my time. So I'd write before work. I'd write during work. I'd write at lunch. I'd write after work. I'd write in the evenings. I'd write all the time. I mean, I used to get up at 3, sometimes even 2 to write every day till 7, 8 o'clock. And then I'd go to work and then I'd write during lunch and I'd write after. And the only reason I ever stopped my job was I realized that I was making more money at 3 to 7 than I was at 7 to or 8 to 2 or whatever I was working. And I was like, why am I getting up at 3 o'clock to write when I'm making more money at that time? I just need to move stuff around. And that's when I became a full-time writer.
And so you sold your first script to the Korean...
Japanese.
Sorry.
We all look the same. Don't worry about it.
No.
I'm just joking. It's okay.
I was actually posting a post right before I got here about a show I'm doing in Koreatown. I was like looking up K-pop stuff. That's what Korea's in my head. Also, we were talking about Squid Game earlier.
Yeah.
I primed myself to make that mistake. Cool. So earlier we were talking about how you balance it all out. And you already mentioned just now, like, working all the time, in between all the time. But you also talked about very rigorous and detailed scheduling.
Yeah, so I have something I call a writing schedule that I live my life to, even to this day. So I put in everything I'm going to write and what I'm going to write every single day. And it's very achievable goals, not achievable. They're very specific goals. And what I try to do is I want it to be goals that I have to reach a little bit for, but not reach too hard because then I can't do it. But I don't want it to be easy either. And what I do is I work on these goals every day, or I look at these goals, and then there's something magical about when you cross out things. It makes you feel good. Because one of the biggest challenges I found as a writer is, when are you done? Because I could write all day. I could write 12 hours a day if I wanted to, but is it really good writing after 12, after 4 hours?
I have experience. Like if I go, I do a writing session, for me, after about 2 hours, I feel like my imagination is slowing down.
As good. It's just not as good.
Yeah.
And then the other challenge is that my brain never turned off. I was always writing. Even when I wasn't writing, I was writing. So I'd go on a date and I'd talk about my writing. That's the only thing I could talk about because it's the only thing I've been thinking about for the last 4 hours. So one of the things about the writing schedule is that once I cross it out, it's out of my head. It's almost like I'm done. I don't need to think about this thing ever again until the next day. And then I have a schedule. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to keep working on stuff. But more importantly, it keeps me focused on my tasks. I have specific tasks I need to do every single day. And that I know at some point I'll be finished. So if you're a producer hiring me and you're saying well, when's the script going to be done? I'll be like, all right, I'm going to write 3 beats a day. There's 54 beats in a script. It's going to take me X number of days. I already know how long it's going to take me. There's no secret. It's just being able to keep me on schedule and keep me going. And, one of the biggest pet peeves I have is that people talk about writing more than they actually write.
Yeah.
And the writing schedule keeps me on point. I know how much I'm going to do every day. I know what I'm going to do. And when I have more time, I could write more. I could put more on my schedule. When I have less time, I put less. But I'm always doing something. And that's the key. You have to always do something. You can't go I think I've only in the last 20 years of my life, I've probably only not written 1 or 2 days.
Wow.
And that's because of lots of factors. One was after COVID opened up. I had I say yes to every project comes to me, and I had 8 scripts in the same 2-month period. And so I was just writing so much that I needed to take a break.
So you took one day off.
I took 1 day off. And then another time was, I think we were traveling, and I just was it was just something hectic about the day. And I think we were
Did you write the day your son was born?
I did. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I write all the time. I mean, there's things are great.
Did you write the day of your wedding?
Yes. I write all the time. If I'm happy, I write. If I'm sad, I write. I mean, it's just something that you do. It's a commitment you have to make.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It is.
You're like a monk.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of one of the things that I think is really important to know is that, you know, even in my writing classes, there's always like a couple students, like adult students, halfway through the class, there's this look in their eyes that says, this is much harder than I thought it was. Like, and then they give up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not magic. It's just work. And one of the things I like about screenwriting and what I tell people is that screenwriting is actually not hard. It's just, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then once you do it long enough, you get it. But you have to work at it. It's not something magical. It's you have to work. You have to work. You have to work.
Yeah, I think a lot of people treat creativity like it's this magical dream state, like just rays of sunshine just hit you and you make a thing.
No, and
it's like building a house. Like you have to, if you're building a house, you have your blueprint, and then after you got to build the foundation, then you got to put the bricks, and every day you have a plan. You're like, okay, today's the day we're going to lay the bricks down. Today's the day we put the floor in.
And so this is why I don't believe in writer's block. I think writer's block is a frame of mind. So what I tell people is that, especially if you have a job, especially if you're like working, you have to get in the frame of mind that every time I open my computer, I'm inspired. And then when the moment I close my computer, I cease to be inspired. And people are always like, how could you teach yourself to be inspired? And I say things like, well, if you worked at McDonald's and somebody asked you to flip a burger and you said, I'm not inspired to flip a burger today, they would fire you. It's the same thing with this. So like if you have a job and you only could write from 12 to 1 every day because it's your lunch hour, then the moment you open that computer, you better be ready to go. And then lunch is over, you close it, you got to go back to work. Like that's how you have to think. And it doesn't change when you're a professional writer or a full-time writer. None of that changes. So like, you know, you've been over to the house in my office, and most of the time, if I'm not writing, my computer's closed. And then the moment I open it, I'm ready to go. Whatever it is, I'm ready to do it. And that's the attitude. Like if I have to work all day, I don't have time to have a block. You're telling me I can't write in this hour? I have 1 hour today. I'm writing.
Yeah. There's producers counting on you. There's budgets.
Or even if there's not, I have an hour. This is my time. I can't be like, I can't write. I don't feel energy. No, this is my writing time. This is all I could do. And I have a writing schedule and I need to get this done. And so the joke with my writing schedule is that my wife knows when I've finished my writing schedule or not, because based on how I feel. So like if I'm like at the end of the day, she comes home and I'm like kind of antsy, it's probably because my writing schedule is not done and I wasn't able to finish it. And I'm stressed out because I'm trying to finish it. And it just means I need to change. And by the way, one thing, writing schedule is not set. So if like I'm struggling with a script, I'm going to write less. Because I could hit out, you know, I could do one beat or I could do less. If I'm doing really well, maybe I write a little bit more. I don't know, depending on what the schedule is.
A handful of years ago, there was some work done. People were talking about this research on willpower, and that one of the ways to have better willpower is to have like a capsule wardrobe where you wear the same thing every day, so that you never have to think about what you're going to wear, because you only have so much willpower in your head to use. And then by the end of the day, you make bad choices when you eat at night or what you watch TV at night because you've used up all your willpower. I think that's one of the struggles for people who have a demanding day job and then also want to do something creative, because you take all that energy to like wake up, do the job you hate, and you do that for 8-10 hours. And then like, what's left to actually do the thing that you love? And oftentimes it's not much.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, first of all, that's why I took a job that wasn't going to be taxing to me. But secondly, I never lost sight that my main goal was screenwriting. That, I mean, if I got another job and it became too much, then I would quit, because my screenwriting was the most important thing. And that was always the most important thing. Everything, I could get a job if that's all I needed to do. But, you know, like you got to make that, like that goal, the goal. And that's the only thing that's important. And I think that's why I could be successful while other people can't.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of tough truth in there.
It is. I mean, it's, you know, it's hard.
This podcast is going to crush people's dreams.
but you know, I think it's BS when people tell you things like you could write a great script and someone will buy it and you'll be rich, because it's bullshit. I'm sorry, I don't know if I could curse.
No, you curse. It's fine.
But like, it's just not true. This is a lottery job. And the thing about lottery jobs is that you just don't know. Like, you could write one script and become wildly successful, and you could write 1 million scripts and nothing will ever happen. You know, like, and one of the things I tell students, and I have to tell myself all the time, is that success has nothing to do with your talent. So I'll give you an example. Say you wrote a book on 9/11, the most amazing human book in human history. It's like the best book ever, but it comes out on September 11th, 2001. No one's fucking reading your book. It doesn't matter how great your book is. You write a crappy book about vampires that walk around in the daylight that sparkle. then all of a sudden everyone wants to read your book and 5 movies are made and blah, blah, blah. Like the terrible writing, terrible book, terrible story. And she became wildly successful. No shade on her. It's fine. But like, it has nothing to do with talent. It has something to do with she hit the zeitgeist at the right moment at the right time and made a lot of money. You know, there are tons of amazing writers out there that are never going to sell anything. And that's just, you just have to accept that. And so my goal as a writer, as a producer, is to make as many projects as possible because it has nothing to do with my level of success.
It's almost a matter of buying lottery tickets.
Yeah, you just got to buy as many lottery tickets and make as many movies. I mean, a lot of people make a movie, it doesn't do well, it doesn't do anything. They're like, I put all my effort into it, I can't do anything else. And then that's it. But like my thing is you just got to keep working. That's all. That's just the way it is. You got to go up there and swing as hard as you can, as many times as you can.
Did you learn that from baseball?
Yes, that's a baseball analogy. Sorry. All I do is play baseball.
But I also do feel like some of the things we learn in sports growing up do end up feeding into what we do as adults. Like I was a runner for a long, even though I didn't, actually this does come into play because I wanted to be a sprinter. They didn't want me to be a sprinter because I wasn't fast. So I just was long distance and I was one of the slowest on the team, but everybody loved me. But I was always kind of this slightly cocky kid in the theater classes and in my choir. Big ego, and running humbled me because I realized how hard you have to work at something to get good at it and to improve. So oh my gosh, the hours and sweat I poured into just making these tiny improvements on my slow ass running. They made me learn hard work and dedication in the way that I didn't learn it at the things I was naturally good at.
Yeah.
And so then fast forward to comedy, now I've got this awesome work ethic and I don't give up when I fail. I push forward because I learned that from track and field.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my son all the time that I can't teach him how to be an elite baseball player because I'm not an elite baseball player. But what I can teach him is how to get there.
How to be disciplined.
The mental attitude, how to work, what you need to do, how you need to beat everybody, how you need to outwork everybody, even if you're talented. How do you get there? You know, because there's like, for example, there's less professional screenwriters than there are Major League Baseball players. You know, because there's 30 Major League Baseball players on every team. You know, or it's a 40-man roster, 40 times 30. You know, there's more baseball players than screenwriters, professional screenwriters who make money. You know, like there are lots of screenwriters, but not those that make money. So, you know, like he has to just work and there's a work ethic and you know, like, and most likely it's not going to work out, but it is what you have to do if you're willing to do it.
I was really hoping this podcast would be very like, this is such a feel-good podcast about creating and just getting in touch with your soul. And I'm starting to see a pattern across some of my guests now with the same theme of work your ass off, okay?
Yeah, I mean, and it's about choices. You're making choices. Like people, you know, when I was younger, like when they want to go clubs, I'm working. You know, that's my job. I'm right because I'm working and then I have to write. And I think that, like, you know, my son as a baseball player, he has to make choices. He could, you know, some of his friends play video games all day and he wants to play video games. I'm like, well, you can make that choice, or if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But you can't play baseball at a higher level and play video games. Those are choices you have to make. And so it's the same way with a creative person.
And individual choices become habits and habits shape your life.
Well, also that there's like, for him, there's like a million other people trying to be Major League Baseball players. And while he's messing around on that video game, there are other players working out, running, doing whatever baseball related. So just like a screenwriter, just like anything creative, you know, you could be at the club. I'm not saying not to have fun because life is short, but you're making a choice. You're saying my career, what I really want to do is not as important as this.
What I really hear you saying is that introverts are better than extroverts. Is that, I'm kidding.
I mean, I think I'm an extrovert. I mean, so actually that's funny because one of the reasons I think I was one of the few successful writers in my program was because I'm an extrovert. I go out there and I talk. I go out there and I ask for money, I pitch. And, you know, like my girlfriend at USC, the one who told me I should be a screenwriter, she's one of the most talented writers I've ever known. And she's very introverted, and so she never sold anything. I don't know if she's writing anymore, but if she is, I mean, like that would be a shame if she's not, because she's clearly one of the best writers I ever met. So, you know, but it's also because she doesn't go out there and pitch and hustle. And the thing about screenwriting and anything creative is that it's about the hustle. How much are you willing to put yourself out there and get rejected, and, you know, have people say no, and, you know, like, if you're not willing to do that, then this is not the career for you, unfortunately. Because you're going to get no. I still get no's. I mean, I wish everything was yes for me. People seem to think there's this magical like moment where everyone says yes to you. But unless you're like George Lucas or Steven Spielberg or Quentin Tarantino or something, other than that, most of us get no's all the time. And so you just got to keep persevering, keep persevering, keep persevering.
Keep pushing. Treat it like a job. It is a job.
It is a job.
Ooh, and that's the other thing. I think people who have day jobs, sometimes they'll daydream about the creative job. Like, if only I was doing what I love, then my life wouldn't suck. And the truth is, even if you did the thing that you love, it's still work. So if the thing you're looking to escape is working hard, then art isn't what you're looking for. Retirement is what you're looking for.
But what I'm saying is, though, that you got to treat the day job as a means to your career. Like, my day job was clearly only there to make some money so that I could write.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that, like, but if I think when people go wrong from what I've seen is that they treat their day job as though that's the main business that they do. My screenwriting was always my main business. My writing was always my main business. Once I made a commitment to I'm going to be a writer, then anything else was just, okay, I'm not making any money. So I have to do something. So let me go get a job.
Yeah.
But if that job ever got in the way, like, for example, like the Japanese American National Museum would allow me to leave to film, for example. Like, if they ever said no, I would have quit because it's not conducive to what I want to do. Like, my job was a writer or producer or whatever, filmmaker. And that was like the number one thing. And I think when people go wrong is that they start to think that where they are is the most important thing. It's just a means to an end. That's how I looked at it. And I think that, so then that's why I would get up early to write. That's why I'd write at work. I'd write I'd write at lunch. I'd write after work. I'd have meetings. That was the most important thing. Everything, like anything else, was not important to me.
And taking a bigger step back, I think sometimes in the culture, in the zeitgeist right now, there's a lot of stuff about like, here's how to make your first $1 million. Everything's about money, money, money. How do I show success because I have money, status, cars? And what if doing the thing that makes you the most money isn't actually what you want to do in life? And sometimes what you want to do won't, to get to the goal you have to scale back on money in the short term to have what you want in the long term. Yeah. So this whole framework I see pushed on a lot of young men and women to a degree, it's going to lead people down a path of unhappiness where they're chasing jobs for money instead of looking at their life holistically and going, what do I really want? Yeah. And how do I get there? And that might not be being a high-powered entrepreneur
or whatever you're trying to do.
Money.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where people, as far as I can tell, have gone wrong, is that they treat their temporary job as their real job, and it becomes their real job. Mm-hmm. And for me, whenever I've had a job like that, this is just something that allows me to write. Yeah. And that, like, it'd be awesome if I could quit because I'd rather write if those were my two choices. Mm-hmm. And so, even though I could, it's not even about putting in work. I mean, I'd work late. I'd work a lot of hours. But you know what I did during the time I had nothing to do? I wrote at work. I would do my work fast so I could write. Or if I had late nights, I would write. That's what I just did. I wrote all the time. And I think that's like something that if anybody takes anything out of this is that you have to do it. And there's just too many people, especially in Hollywood, no offense to Hollywood, but there's just too many people who just talk about writing. Yeah. Talk about it, and they actually don't do it. And that's super frustrating.
I feel targeted because you were like, let's write something together. And last year I was like, this year in January, I was like, yes. And then
I got busy too. My apologies. But okay. we'll write together.
We will.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's like always the thing that, like when people ask me like to help them, like I can't help you write. I can't help you.
You ultimately have to
do the work. You have to want
to
do it on your own. I could do all the stuff to get you there. I could teach you how to do it. It's not that hard. That's like that. Screenwriting is actually like the craziest thing about this whole thing. Screenwriting is actually not hard. Once you understand structure, once you understand how how you're supposed to format it, and like it's actually not hard.
Well, I think what people fantasize about is like
the money part, the red carpet,
the red carpet, fame. And playing make believe. Like we want to feel like playing imagination is like playing dolls, like we did when we were a kid. Like, oh, screenwriting, it's gonna be so, and no, it's actually work.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, they imagine that, but the thing that really changed my world and was this idea that I think that when people have creative fields, they think that there's only like two options. Mm-hmm. One is like super famous, like I don't know, Quentin Tarantino, or you work at McDonald's. No, nothing wrong with working at McDonald's. I'm just saying those are the two options. When in reality, in the entertainment business and most creative fields, there's this middle ground. There's middle class people, not middle class like literally middle class, but there's a bunch of people who make a career but aren't famous, but they're also not poor.
Yeah.
So like that's me. I'm like in that middle class where I get paid to write professionally, and I make money. There are actors who are like on a bunch of TV shows or a bunch of movies. They're not famous. I mean, you might recognize them, but they're not famous, but they make a good money. There are directors and, comedians that are like, aren't Eddie Murphy, but travel all the time and work. And like Dwayne Perkins, like he's a perfect example. He's not like the most famous person, but he's a career professional comedian who all he does is do comedy. Yeah. He doesn't have another job. He doesn't do anything. And I think once you get your mind around that, you don't have to be famous, because there's very few people that become famous, and you get your mind that you don't have to be poor, that there's this middle ground, then everything works out better. You're much more comfortable, because that's more realistic. That's like something that's actually going to happen, as opposed to becoming some famous writer, director, actor.
Something I've been kind of focusing on lately also is you have to want to create the art for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Because you enjoy it and it does something for you to make it. Because if the goal is money, you can make money a million other ways.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally the first 5 minutes of my classes. I say, if you're here to make money, if you're here to sell your first script, it's probably not going to happen, so you should quit. Because it's not worth it. It's not going to happen for you. I mean, if it does, congratulations. And what I say is, if you write it and it happens, then congratulations. That's awesome. But if it doesn't happen, you're going to stop writing, because making money in screenwriting is a terrible idea. You're not going to make any money, especially the way business is now.
Even absolutely. Worse. Nothing's being bought. Nothing's being bought. I saw this meme the other day, and we'll wrap up soon. But I saw this meme, and it was like, all these people don't want to support the arts, but if people didn't have music and TV and film, like what would they all do? And as much as I love the sentiment of that, like, yes, art is important. What I didn't like about the meme is that it's saying that art's value comes from its consumption. I think art's value comes from creation in and of itself. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what I would also argue the other side is that one of the problems with a lot of newbie or young writers or baby writers is that they think of it as an art, and I think of it as a business. And that that's
the other layer.
Yeah. And so like, why aren't they buying this? Well, because who's going to watch that movie? No one's going to watch that movie. I'm sorry. Like, no one's going to like buy my book. No one's going to buy that book. And, like, I didn't know it at the time, because I thought it was an amazing book. It wasn't, because no one's going to like, there's nobody out there. And so like it's a business. Ultimately, it's, are you going to make money? Can you make money? So like, no, like, even though I talk trash about Twilight, it was a wildly successful book because a billion people bought the book and read them. So
it's a balance. It's a balance. It is art, but it's also a business.
But it is also a business.
But you need to make it because it's art and you love it. And then if you're lucky enough, you get to treat it like a business.
Yeah, but you have to understand that people are buying it, or like your success is based on like it's a business, unfortunately. Like, because it, if it's not good, it's not good. Or if, like if you're not putting money into something, like it's not gonna work, unfortunately. In this day and age. So sorry. So we should end happily though. So.
Yeah. What a feel good episode this was.
Well, so here, this is what I would say to people.
Yeah.
That's why you should write, because you want to write.
Yes. Like
that should be something that you want to do. Like I told my son today, we were having a conversation. I told him I would write even if I never got paid. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't write the stuff I write now necessarily, but I would write all the time still. Like, and it doesn't change. Like, it didn't change. Like people think I wrote more the moment I stopped working, like on a day job. I write actually the same. Now I just do other stuff, and so that's something. So if you love writing, it doesn't matter if you don't get paid, because it's the process of the writing that's important.
And I think that applies to everything else, whether you're someone who wants to be a photographer, someone who wants to be a professional dancer, actor, anything. You need to do it, regardless of if you're getting paid, just to get good at it, to love it. All of that.
Because that's what makes you whole.
Yes.
That's that hustle, that grind is what makes, that grind is like, it's not fun to be writing all the time, but that's when I feel most like myself. Like it's actually not when I'm in the red carpet or in the theater watching the streaming thing or whatever. It's like, that's like, by then I'm already moved on. Like I barely want to watch it. I'm like, this is not as good as what I imagined. But more importantly, it's like, I find fun in that. And that's what I tell my son as a baseball player. You have to find the fun in the grind of the batting practices, of the running, of the weightlifting. Like those are stuff that like, that's like, if you could fall in love with that, then you'll be successful, because ultimately you'll just outgrind people, because life is like this, and screenwriting is like that too, like
comedy too.
Everything is like, there's really great moments, there's really terrible moments. And if you if you're trying to do it because of these kinds of moments, it's gonna be heartbreak after heartbreak, and people aren't gonna want to read your stuff. You're not gonna get a manager. You're not gonna get an agent. So just do it because you want to do it, and it'll work out maybe.
And that's the measure. You did something and you had fun doing it, and you enjoyed the process, and that is the validation. Of course, if you make money, that's cool too.
Yeah, well, and honestly, like we talked about, I write 8 scripts at a time. 7 of them are never gonna be seen. But the problem was I don't know which of this 8 is going to be made. So I can't be like, I'm going to work on this one more than the other ones, because how do I know that's the one? So you kind of have to do all of them. And that's the grind. I love the grind. I know it's never going to get made, already when I'm writing it. A lot of times I'm like, this is never going to get made. I don't know how I'm going to make money. I don't know how I'm going to sell it. I'm not going to ever get funding for this, but I'm writing it because I want to write it. That's the love of it. That's the grind. So love the grind. You'll do well. Don't love the grind. It's not going to work out. You might as well quit now.
There you go. There you go. And I feel that way about comedy too. The other day, I haven't been on the road a lot this year, and I was like, God, I miss airports. It's like I miss the airport gift shop. I want to go to Montana. I want to buy Huckleberry Jam. And that's also part of it for comedy. You got to love the travel. You got to love the driving on the road and the gas station snacks, along with the on-stage part, because it's not just the on-stage part. It's
and then booking the shows, and you have to talk to the comedians, and I imagine, I'm not a comedian, but if after the show, I'm sure people come up to you, and like some of them might be somebody you want to talk to because they might have opportunities, but you don't know which one. I mean, sometimes you can tell which one, but sometimes you don't know, and so like you kind of have to engage. You can't be like, I don't want to talk to anybody, I'm too important, because you never know. Like that's how I deal with my life. Like some people might talk to me about screenwriting. I don't know. They might be rich, or they might, they might have a lot of money to fund my movie. I don't know. So I don't want to be like, I'm too good for you. I'm too important. I'm not going to listen to you. Like you just, like I live my life and I have fun living my life.
Have fun, you guys. That's the takeaway.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Grind.
Let's wrap it up. Where can we find you?
I have my website, www.kojistevensakai.com with a V. So KOJISTEVEN Sakai SAKAI. And you could also listen to our podcast, The Unofficial Official Story, which is an unpaying favorite thing I do.
We have a lot of fun on that podcast, and it is really enjoyable to listen to. So you guys should definitely check out The Unofficial Official Story. Although I feel like that is going to give more traffic to this than this is to that. You can find me at Cat Alvarado Comedy on Instagram and on Threads. I also started a Blue Sky.
I started a Blue Sky, yeah.
Nice. Let's follow each other on there.
Yeah, we're going to, and then also on Unofficial, we're stopping doing Twitter. We're no longer doing Twitter, and we're going to do Blue Sky, yeah.
Awesome. I'm catalvarado.bsky.social. Is that what they are?
Yeah,
they need to shorten this.
I have no idea.
Go follow me on Blue Sky. I only have 50 followers. All right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And tune in again to the next one. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.